Yo, what's up everyone, it's ePower here. A little while ago I had made a Sucrose and Bennett guide video where I show you guys how using those two characters can really boost the overall damage of your team. In that video I showcased those characters underleveled with just awful artifacts and with very little amounts of resources put towards them. But now guys, I finally had the extra resources to give Bennett what he deserves, and I wanted to showcase how he performs now. One thing to know while watching the showcase here, pay attention to how quickly his elemental burst refreshes, as well as the amount of healing he does. So smash that like button, and let's get the showcase started. Okay, so all I really have to say is that Bennett is an absolute monster of a support when you dedicate resources and the proper artifacts to him. He has earned himself a permanent spot on my team. There's really no other characters in this game that can provide an attack buff along with an overtime AoE heal. Without Bennett, I probably couldn't pull off the things like one-shotting bosses or just clearing domains in an extremely short amount of time. Not only that though, Bennett is also a crazy good energy battery for your team. If he stands in his own elemental burst, his elemental skill cooldown gets reduced by quite a bit, and he can generate so much energy. He can essentially refresh his own elemental burst during the duration of this skill. I'm gonna argue that Bennett is easily the best 4-star character in this game. I also want to go over how you guys can prioritize your talent level, what constellations you need with Bennett, as well as which artifacts and weapons you should be aiming towards. For a support Bennett build, you really don't need to level up any other talent besides his elemental burst. He's not your main DPS character, so you're primarily only using his elemental skill to recharge his energy. So you really want to level up that elemental burst of his because that's going to increase the amount of damage and healing it provides. In terms of constellations guys, I've mentioned this too in my other video, but ideally you want C1 on Bennett because that's going to take away the HP restriction on his attack buff from his elemental burst. I do have C5 on my Bennett, but it is really only C1 that makes the biggest difference for him. For players who are getting close to C6 Bennett, I would be careful in unlocking that last constellation because it changes all normal white attacks into Pyro. Now guys, keep in mind that for this Bennett build, it is extremely doable for most of the players in this game. It is extremely free to play friendly, and you don't even need a 5-star weapon for Bennett support to be viable. And speaking about weapons guys, let's go over now and what I'm currently using and what alternatives that you can use. For weapons, there's two things that you want to consider when looking for a weapon. The first is a weapon that has a high base attack, and the second is a weapon that has energy recharge as a secondary base stat. The weapons that I'm going to recommend is going to be the Festering Desire. It fits both the criterias, and the best thing about this weapon is that for those of you who have played through the last event, you should already have it. So if you have this weapon just sitting around, then give it to Bennett. Favonia's Sword and the Sacrificial Sword are going to be great 4-star alternatives as well. Now, if you have the 5-star weapon, the Skyward Blade, you definitely want to use that because the amount of damage that Bennett buffs from his elemental burst scales with the spaced attack. For those that don't have any of these mentioned weapons and are quite new to the game, then I would run the 3-star weapon Skyrider Sword. Moving on, let's take a look at his artifacts. For artifacts, there's really no other option but the 4-piece Noblesse set. This set is just so good for a support build because each time Bennett uses his elemental burst, he's going to give an extra 20% attack to all party members for 12 seconds. This is incredible because it lasts as long as his elemental burst. Bennett's elemental burst only has a 3-second cooldown, so you can cycle through the skill over and over again, providing your team with insane amounts of damage and healing. So for main stats, you're going to be looking for is going to be energy recharge on Sands, HP percentage on Goblet, and lastly healing bonus on Circlet. The substats you're going to be looking for is going to be energy recharge, HP percentage, crit rates, crit damage, and then elemental mastery. Energy recharge, of course, is going to be so important because this is ultimately going to allow you to spam those elemental bursts. HP percentage is great because Bennett's heal scales off of how much HP he has. Now, for my specific artifacts, for my flower spot, the attack percentage and the elemental mastery isn't ideal. It would have been nice if those stats had gone into like energy recharge and HP, but overall it is still a solid artifact. I'm pretty happy with my feather artifact here because the bulk of upgrades went into energy recharge and HP percentage. My Sands artifact, ideally again, I would have liked HP percentage instead of attack percentage, but overall this is still fantastic because it would be really good for a character like Mona in the future, but other than that, the energy recharge as the main stat is still going to be a good option for Bennett. For my goblet spot, the rows had gone once into energy recharge, once into defense, and then the rest into flat HP, which honestly isn't too bad. It would have been better if they had gone to energy recharge, but you know what, I'll take that flat HP because that would lead to higher amounts of heals. And then for my circlet spot, this is probably the best piece for my Bennett here. That's something that I'm really happy with. It gives 25% energy recharge and also 6% HP. Now, for those of you who aren't at the point of the game where you can farm for the Noblesse set, I would recommend 4 pieces of the Exile set. The 2 piece of that is going to give you 20% more energy recharge, and then for the 4 piece, whenever you use your elemental burst, that's going to generate more energy for the rest of your team. Now, I know this is a question that a lot of you guys are going to be asking, well, E-Power, what's the ideal energy recharge percentage for Bennett? And you know what? That answer is going to vary depending on your team's composition and your own personal playstyle. Ideally, to start, you want to aim for something around 200%. Anything above that, it's really up to you. Now, the reason why I'm stacking energy recharge so heavily on Bennett is because of my own playstyle. I don't have Bennett out on the field too often, which means the only time he comes out is when he uses his elemental burst, and after using that, I'll maybe use his elemental skill once and then immediately swap out to my main DPS character. Now, if you guys read the text here, energy recharge increases the amount of energy regenerated with each elemental particle and elemental orb obtained. So with that being said, the main way that my Bennett gets energy is from energy particles created from either my main DPS's character's elemental skill, as well as the energy orbs that spawn from enemies dying. By stacking so much energy recharge on my Bennett, I don't really have to spend too much time spamming his elemental skill just to get his elemental burst back up. So I don't have to have him active on the field. Instead, I can have more time focused on utilizing my main DPS characters. Another thing to consider too, if you have another pyro character on the team, your Bennett will gain more energy from those specific pyro particles. So you can end up running a little less energy recharge and you will be okay. But ultimately, at the very least, I would aim towards 200%. And if you guys feel that is too high still, then you can swap Bennett's weapon to like the prototype Rancor, which gives an insane amount of base attack, or even the 5-star weapon, the Aquila Phaephonia, if you have it. Or you can also swap out his Sans artifact spot for either an attack percentage or HP percentage artifact, depending if you want a little bit more healing or a little bit more extra damage coming out from him. But keep in mind, having attack percentage on Sans will not increase the amount of damage he provides from his elemental burst. Let me know in the comment section below how much energy recharge you guys are going to give to your Bennett. It's always interesting to see how people customize their own characters based on their playstyles. There's a few more things that I had wanted to mention with Bennett, and these are mainly just some extra tips and advice. Because of how fast Bennett's elemental burst refreshes, you can really abuse the invisibility frames on it. And for those that don't know this already, but whenever a character casts their elemental burst, they have a small window of invincibility where they can't take any damage. So for instance, you would be on your main DPS character, and if you know you're about to get hit by something hard, you can quick cast Bennett's elemental burst to avoid that damage, or worst case scenario, even if you do mess up the timing, your Bennett is just just going to take that hits. And because you're building him HP anyways, he's going to be pretty tanky, and his elemental burst is just going to heal him back up regardless. And lastly, because Bennett's heal won't heal his entire party instantly, and it is a heal over time, be careful when you're switching to like a low HP character to heal up. Unlike Jean and Barbara's heal, Bennett's heal does take a second before it actually activates, so if you switch to like a low HP character and you're in a bad position, there's a huge chance that the character is going to get hit by something stupid and die before they can even get healed. And guys, I've had to learn this the hard way. There's been so many times where I've lost like a main DPS character like this, and I've had to use those fried eggs to revive my characters. So one way to get around this, obviously, well, have a huge amount of those fried eggs just sitting in your inventory. Or before healing your character, just get yourself into like a better position where you know you won't get instantly killed as soon as you swap into that low HP character. So guys, that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Originally, I wasn't planning on making this video since I already had made like a Bennett guide video, but I wanted to do this as more of a showcase as to what Bennett can really do when he has the proper gear and resources invested into him. For those that do have Bennett and have been skeptical about building him, I hope this convinces you otherwise, because he is just such an amazing support character. But other than that, guys, please give this video a thumbs up, and if you enjoyed watching my Genshin Impact videos, then please subscribe to my channel as I will continue to be making more. With all that being said, guys, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.